Okay, let's go.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to EndZone Sports. It's your host, Tim, here. I'm joined with Brandon, Ryan, and Paul, here to bring you down some football commentary, bringing you the latest and greatest news, as well as some questions that we have for y'all to discuss. If you guys like what y'all hear tonight, go ahead and give us a like and a subscribe. We'd really appreciate it. Starting things off, Caleb Williams. Is he still quarterback one? He's coming off 2 losses in a row, has not looked that hot. Brandon, I'll let you kick things off.
Yeah, I think he's got a tough schedule left. I mean, the easiest is not UCLA, Cal, and then Cal, UCLA, UW, and Oregon. So he's got a tough remaining schedule to go. With the drama kind of coming up, I think, especially kind of following kind of the Lamar stuff of what was that last offseason, Lamar Jackson, I think some teams are going to be a little bit apprehensive seeing him kind of making big asks allegedly of wanting equity in a team and stuff like that, because that could be a real pain in the ass for a team, honestly. And if it's a rookie making those claims and maybe he lands in a situation he doesn't have good receivers, or on paper he has good receivers and they don't perform, he might be throwing his hands up and sitting out. I mean, it could be a nightmare situation for a team.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think whenever the news broke that he was going to ask for equity in a franchise, I said it to y'all. I said it to probably everybody that I don't like him. I can't stand any rookie that thinks that they're good enough to do that. I think he's really got to earn his keep, and especially after the past 2 weeks and what I assume is going to happen the rest of this season. 2 of those games I wouldn't be super worried about, but I mean, UW, Oregon, those games, if the past 2 weeks are any indication, probably going to lose those. Barely skate by into a bowl game that he'll sit out of, and there's no telling what else he might start to talk about, just trying to save his tail, So I'm not big on him anymore. I think talent-wise, yeah, he's probably still QB1. But if I was the owner of a franchise, a head coach, I wouldn't want to put up with the headache. So I wouldn't take the chance on him. But I don't know. He is good, but I don't know if he's worth all the drama.
I think it's kind of like a Jalen Carter situation where he may be the most talented on the field, but there is that off the field and kind of the basket case situation that he's bringing in. Asking for ownership in the team is kind of a bad look. I've heard it's a PR stunt, but I'm like, Caleb Wilson doesn't need PR. Like, he's projected number 1 overall pick. And then the last 4 games, when you look at his performance overall, he's really struggled. Almost blew a big lead to Colorado. He won by 2 points against Arizona in triple overtime, and then really had a bad performance in the last 3 games. He's thrown 2 touchdowns and 3 interceptions. And then the 2 ranked games he's played, he's lost and had kind of rather poor performances. So it's definitely taken his drop or his draft ranking. I think he's still going to be. Some team is going to still take him in the top 10. Just I know people value quarterbacks, but it's definitely going to be a question, especially if a guy like Drake May continues to play well and raise his draft stock. It's going to, you could see him drop into the mid 5s, mid top 10s, something like that.
Yeah. I agree, man. I think that Drake May has definitely put a push to be that, 1A or 1B. I mean, I think it's really close. He's closed the gap for sure. I want to bring up too, like, another thing that's kind of hesitating, like makes me a little hesitant, is the fact that he's in a Lincoln Riley offense, and we have not seen a lot of great quarterbacks come out of that offense. I mean, you have Baker Mayfield, who has not really been, that franchise quarterback that we thought he was going to be coming out to the Browns. Kyler Murray, I mean, the Cardinals are already considering moving on from him, and it's just not looking like it's going to be a great start for Caleb Williams. I think he still has that talent. Like, the talent's still there. So Paul, I don't know if you want to touch base on Drake May's talent, but I think Caleb Williams, it's a close gap there.
I mean, Drake May is definitely a stud. I've heard a lot of comparisons to Justin Herbert, which who knows if that's kind of panning out to be a great comparison. But I mean, mobile quarterback, has Patrick Mahomes-esque, abilities like they're praising with Caleb Wilson. Had a beautiful left-handed touchdown pass a couple of weeks ago. He's in an underrated team. I think North Carolina has a good offense. They just got their best receiver back, so that should help him as far as his draft stock. So an easy conference overall. So I don't see unless he starts playing, like garbage. I think his stock is only going to be going up.
Yeah, no, it'll definitely be a tough one.
Hey, I know I'm not wearing the purple and gold, but this is a Louisiana school. Got to say, Jade Daniels is going off right now. He's my Heisman front runner. I think the way that LSU's kind of playing right now, got a bye week coming in, and then they're going to play, they're always the biggest game of the year against Bama. They can win out, if he kind of shows some poise like he's been doing and keeps putting up numbers like this. I don't see why he shouldn't be probably QB3 or QB4 in this draft.
No, definitely. I mean, dude, he's definitely impressed me too. At the start, I was a little hesitant on him. I was like, I think because last year he was good, but he wasn't like anything outstanding. And this year, man, he's just been kind of elevating his game and taking it to another level. So I would be kind of curious, man, if he does perform well against Bama. That's going to be huge for his draft stock. And I definitely see him going probably top 10, top 15 if he easily wins that. He's already pushed himself, in my opinion, to a first round pick. So I think that if he's able to continue to elevate his game and show that against the top talent against the SEC like he's been doing, dude, it's gonna be a tough discussion for that QB3, QB4, like you said.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that wraps up our quarterback talk, man. Now let's get down to the trade candidates. We have our trade deadline coming up, I believe, in a week from now. So I just kind of wanted to break down, get your ideas. Who are some trade candidates y'all think that y'all will see get traded before the deadline? Again, we are about a week away. So, and this was filmed on a Tuesday. So if things happen between now and when this video is released, it's going to be a busy one. So Brandon, go ahead and kick things off.
Before today, or I guess this morning, I would have said Zach Ertz before he went on IR, or I think it was this morning, maybe yesterday. It was recent. Actually, I'm not 100% sure. Maybe y'all can correct me on the trading player on IR. I don't think you can. Yeah, so that kind of muddies things a little bit. I guess like takes him off the table. Derrick Henry, though, with Tannehill's health kind of in question, Titans kind of season's been relatively turbulent, honestly. I think he might be a good one for some team to go grab.
Ryan, do you have anyone that you have in mind? I know that Derrick Henry's definitely a big one. They also
Derrick Henry's tough. I mean, I feel like I've seen a lot about Jerry Jeudy wanting to get out of Denver. All that stuff with Steve Smith was so weird. I think it was like last week or the week before that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not super big on the way Judy's been kind of carrying himself and everything, but I mean, he's still an Alabama wide receiver. He's not too far gone, I feel like. So he could probably go to a team that's, kind of in, I guess, wide receiver purgatory, I guess you'd call it. I don't really know where, but I know that it looks like Denver really wants to kind of move off of him. So I'd imagine his name might get called by the time the trade deadline comes up.
No, that's definitely a good buy low candidate right there, man. A lot of talent coming from Alabama. I mean, he was a stud. So we'll
freak
see.
Athlete, super shifty, still probably one of the best route runners in the league. At least he was when he was coming out of college. So never hurts. Maybe it's just needs a change of scenery. Similar to what Brandon said about Tennessee. Denver seems to be pretty turbulent right now with a lot of drama going on. Sean Payton coming under a lot of fire. So we'll see. Probably see Judy's name move on.
Paul, what you got?
Two players I got here for you. DeAndre Hopkins only signed he signed a pretty big deal with Tennessee. Ryan Tannehill's got some injury concerns, so it's either going to be Will Levis or Malik Willis stepping up at quarterback. But the offense, and especially if they do trade Derrick Henry, I could see them just selling the whole ship, taking a whole year. They're going to finish in the bottom of the division most likely. They have a good defense, which is really unfortunate, but I could see them, sending them off to a team that's in win now mode. It was rumored that Chiefs were going to sign him in the offseason. So if they want to pay his contract and we can send him Sky Moore or MVS for Derrick Hopkins, I would absolutely love that, me personally. But one more, stick with the wide receivers. I got Terrence Marshall Jr. From Carolina. He's already requested a trade. Second-year player from LSU, another player that I kind of wanted to take as well as it being a Chiefs fan. he did actually finish last year as the number 1 receiver per PFF as far as on the deep route. So I think he's just an untapped potential. He really just doesn't get the ball a lot. He's buried in that offense. For whatever reason, he had one really good game, and they just don't want to play him. And also, right now, Young is only has like an average air yards of like 4 yards, so really not getting the ball that deep down the field. I think a lot of that's due to just him being short, his offensive line just being subpar at best, and then just rookie woes that he's got to kind of figure out. But I think that's another one. Obviously, he's already requested a trade, so I think they'll probably going to grant that to him. But those are my 2 guys.
No, that would be cool for Terrace. He went to the high school in my hometown, and he's a freak athlete. But I completely agree with you, Paul. I would really like to see him go somewhere that he can get used, because I feel like he's been underutilized since he's been in the league. So
yeah, no, I agree with you, man. I feel like they have not given him much targets, and he's definitely was a playmaker at LSU, part of that trio with Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase. And so, I mean, I'm with you guys. I think that those, that's a good one. Paul, like you said, D-Hop. I mean, if the Titans are really willing to work something out, maybe contractually in exchange for a higher pick, I think the Chiefs definitely are one of the teams to keep your eye on. I think that some guys that I have, Brian Burns, like the Panthers are definitely in this kind of stuck in a rebuild situation where they have their franchise quarterback, or at least who they believe is their franchise quarterback. They don't really have much draft capital though coming into this year due to the trade up to get him. So Brian Burns, dude, he's a solid edge rusher. I think that there's some teams that are going to be playoff bound that need a solid pass rusher. And I mean, this guy's he's got the full package. So I could see them trying to trade him, get some draft capital back, probably a first round pick and some, because he's that good of a player.
He's young.
He's young. He will have to get paid. So I want to note that. But I think that if you're a team, I'm just going to say like the Seattle Seahawks, man, like
I believe he already got a contract.
Okay, my apologies. Yeah, I guess he got paid, man. He's got his bag. But I mean, I think that, dude, if you can get him on a team like the Seahawks, dude, you better watch out, because that just improves their defense that much more. I'll go through the next kind of list of guys pretty quickly. These are guys that I would say are a little less likely, but would be fun to see kind of play on some different teams, specifically ones that are more, I guess, competitive towards getting a Super Bowl. Devontae Adams, man, he's already expressed some frustration with the Raiders organization. It's not necessarily the fact that they won't listen, because after he expressed that frustration, he did get a lot of targets and got the ball and played really well. But it's just the fact that, look, man, he's going to be on a team with, Jimmy Garoppolo, who's obviously proved that he's more of just a system kind of guy and just more of a game manager. I would love to see Devontae Adams go to a team that's, able to air the ball out more, but also is just a team that really needs like a number 1 or a good number 2, probably even still be most teams' number 1 wide receiver. Another guy on my list, Pat Surtain. He's still really, really young. And I think the Broncos definitely are going to want a lot in return for him. He's a solid cornerback, probably one of the best in the league. So I would say that, they're going to be a team that's kind of in that iffy moment of, do we need to stick with what we have and see, what we can turn out of it? But Sean Payton, I mean, dude, he's going to want some draft capital for some of these guys, because these are not the guys that he took from New Orleans with him. So be on the lookout for him. Another fellow Bronco, the Justin Simmons, the safety. He's going to be a solid trade candidate. I think that this one's a little bit more realistic, as there are some teams that have had some safety issues and injuries over the past couple of weeks. And then the last but not least, this is a big one. I don't think this will happen, but it would be really fun to see Max Crosby. I think the Raiders, I mean, this guy has been playing pretty much every snap for them. He's just an absolute beast. He's having an incredible year. I think that he's just kind of getting to this point where it's like, hey, we're not winning. This coach is probably going to get fired by the end of the year. Our quarterback is still kind of iffy and in jeopardy of who their franchise is going to be ran by. So I would love to see Max go to a team that's in solid contention. There's some teams out there that definitely could improve their edge rushing group. But I mean, this guy's more than just an edge rusher. He's just an overall playmaker.
Yeah, so he's a dog.
Yeah, absolutely. I would love to see him go to a team that's like just on that fringe of being there. I mean, this would be crazy, but dude, if he went to the Lions, if they traded 2 first-round picks to get him, him with Aiden Hutchinson, oh my God, that would just be insane.
And he would definitely fit into Dan Campbell's system for sure. He's definitely that player that he could get right behind and wouldn't even miss a beat.
That'd be scary. Brian Branch, Jack Campbell, Aiden Hutchinson, Crosby.
Crosby, dude. Oh my God.
Jesus.
Yeah, so I would just want to throw those names out there, guys. I think that it would be a lot of fun to see these guys play for some other teams. Again, there's a lot of that that goes into it, obviously, with the not only just the trade value but also their contracts. But it's kind of fun to kind of throw out these scenarios. But yeah, no. Next up, guys, overreactions, or are these just typical reactions? I'm gonna start off with some questions that I got, and then I'll kind of kick off with some that Brandon brought up. So start things off. All right. After Monday's beatdown, the Vikings are no longer in contention for a top draft quarterback. They're going to make the playoffs this year. Y'all think that's an overreaction, or is that something that's actually pretty possible?
I think it's an overreaction. I think it's possible, but I don't think it's an expectation yet. But the chance of it increased, I would say.
I'd say a slight overreaction. I definitely think they can make the playoffs if they, kind of. And I know the 49ers are kind of iffy right now, but that's still a great win. Kirk seems to be getting into his bag a little bit. Old Kirko. Justin Jefferson is due to come back. Jordan Addison is providing a lot in the meantime. Had a hell of a game last night. Hell of a first half, at least. So I mean, I definitely think. I'm so big on Detroit, so I really hope that they're the winner of the North, and then Vikings would get the wild card. But I love Kirk. I've been very outspoken about that on this show. But he's still getting up there. So I think they'd be looking, but I don't think it's going to be like one of those top 4, 5 guys unless they pull some strings and move up in the draft.
Yeah, I mean, it is his last year on his contract, so he's 35. I think he's very worth a new contract. He's still playing at I think he's still a top 10 quarterback right now. Especially last night, he actually disproved all the primetime Kirk, defeating the top 2 team in the NFC right there. Their defense has really stepped up as well. They've had back-to-back games of stellar performances. I don't think they're selling Kirk Cousins, even though I know it was rumored that he was going to get traded, especially with Jefferson going on IR. I last week, if you asked me this question, I thought he was for sure going to get shipped off. But that win, the defense stepping up for 2 weeks in a row against a rather good offense, and then all their other receivers stepping up, I don't see why they would move on for Kirk Cousins. Obviously, he's a fan favorite; everyone likes him, and yeah, I think that win changes the whole mindset in Minneapolis.
No, definitely, man. I think that was a monumental win. I think that Kirk has definitely kind of changed the course of the ship. I think that they're going to make it the playoffs. There's, yeah, Kirko changed, man. I think they're going to make the playoffs, dude. There's 3 wild card teams. I don't see anyone from the AFC South making it. You might have, the Cowboys and Eagles right now have a shot of making it. And again, in the West, I mean, you still got, the Seahawks and Rams really battling it out. So we'll see. I think it's definitely going to be a lot closer. I want to point out the Vikings have a little bit of an easier schedule ahead of them too, so they could win a few more games here, along with getting Justin Jefferson back, and their defense is playing better. So I'm excited to see how that turns out. Next one, Green Bay Packers. They will be selecting top 5 and will look to move on from Jordan Love.
I'm going to say it's an overreaction. I'm not going to say, or I think they could move on for Jordan Love, but I don't think they're going to be top 5. I think they have a good enough defense and secondary that they will get some wins still.
I don't know. I mean, I think Jordan Love will have this year, and then depending on how things go, probably like half of next year, honestly, to figure it out. I think just because they want to, I don't know. I'll call it another slight overreaction. I agree with Brandon. Their defense is good. If Aaron Jones and oh my God, the other guy, AJ Dillon can the quad father. How could I forget?
Hit the opposite of me.
If they can, those are both 2 good running backs. I mean, you can win a decent amount of games relying on a good run game and a solid defense. I don't know. I still think Jordan's still pretty fresh. I mean, I know he kind of sat back, watched Aaron and stuff, but he still kind of got to react. I don't know. We'll see. I think that's an overreaction though.
I completely agree. I think that is, or with the overreaction, I think Jordan Love is out. He's 10 touchdowns to 7 interceptions this season, has a 49 QBR. He's played all the teams he's played are rather bad. He beat the Bears, big whoop. He lost to the Falcons. They're not that great. He lost to the Saints, or he beat the Saints, but that was after Derek Carr got hurt. He got whooped by the Lions. I mean, they were really getting boat raced for most of that. They put up 20 points, but that was all kind of in the second half. He lost to the Raiders. He only put up 13 points on the offense. And then they also just lost to the Denver Broncos, and they only put 17 points. So the offense is just absolutely terrible. And I know Aaron Jones is out, and he's kind of their main guy. They've had some injuries at the wide receiver position, but he has just not had any stellar performances that really make you think that he is the future. He's been a good fantasy performer just because he's getting touchdowns, but he hasn't had a game over 260 yards this season. He's touted it as a kind of dual threat Josh Allen type quarterback. Doesn't really rush the ball that much. His highest rushing yards is 40. So he's really not proven to be, at least proven to me. I've watched a decent amount of their games. I haven't really seen what everyone's talking about. And even in the couple of games that he's played in the past, when Rodgers just went down, he carried the one game. They got the win, but I don't see it happening. And I think their defense is good, but they're dealing with a lot of injuries. So I think they could be finishing kind of in the bottom of the. I think they're going to get a top 10 pick.
I think Green Bay will be selecting top 5 guys. They only have 2 wins over the year, and they just got off a nasty loss against the Broncos. Would be kind of curious to see how Matt LaFleur, if he's going to be borderline on the hot seat going into 2024. I think that Jordan Love has showed some potential, but I think that he's been playing very, very conservatively. And, that can only get you so far really in this league. And, I know he has some young receivers, but I mean, dude, they've drafted a lot of guys to put some talent near him. If I'm not mistaken, they have 3 wide receivers that were selected in, if I'm not mistaken, the second round. They have a tight end that they just selected in the second round this year. And I mean, again, like he has a defense. Their offensive line, don't get me wrong, is a little, banged up with some injuries, but I just think that this guy's kind of a complimentary quarterback, and I don't think he's going to be much more than that. So they do have him on contract through the remainder of this year and next year. But it is kind of easy to get out of that after the post June 1st cut era. So we'll kind of see how things go. But again, I mean, if you're picking top 5 and you have one of these guys with, generational talent, I don't see why they wouldn't want to move on from him. This guy's definitely had some time to soak in as much as he could from Aaron Rodgers. And I know it's kind of a short leash, but when you have an opportunity at this good of a quarterback class, I don't see why you would want to skip out and gamble on next year. All right, next up for our overreactions take, mega quarterback contracts. We've had some discussions before on some of these quarterbacks and their pay and, if they're really worth that dollar amount. So we'll kind of see, are we kind of coming to the end of these mega quarterbacks or mega quarterback contracts? I don't really see it coming, but I do think that you're going to see some of these guys that were more system oriented that are going to start seeing a little bit of a decline in their demand for like top 2 or top 5 quarterback money. But Brandon, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we saw the running back market kind of reset a little bit this offseason or have some turbulence also. And then looking at like Danny Dimes and Tyrod Taylor stepping in, winning the game, looking great out there. It felt like a different team, frankly. And I think there's a lot of quarterbacks like that, like kind of guys that were middle tier had kind of, I mean, frankly, Danny Dimes' rookie contract was very up and down. I mean, it was very inconsistent. And unless guys are super consistent for their first 3-4 years, I don't think they're going to get the money like they used to, at least.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think, I just everything that you just said with what we've seen with Daniel Dimes, I still don't know how he got that much money to begin with, but it's just I feel like most franchises, they're smart enough to know what they have and know where they're at. Kind of, especially seeing it this year, quarterback market's just down, and so I think the talent in quarterbacks isn't like there's Mahomes, Allen. You can throw a couple more names in there, and then it just really drops off. And so, like, you can argue for it. It is the most important position, but I don't think the talent's kind of down right now. So the market's in a flux, and I think it'll start to adjust itself now that they've kind of given these contracts and quarterbacks have kind of shown their ass, in a way.
Yeah. And there's a lot of good rookies coming in, at least in this class too. I mean, young talent has proven. I mean, it got the Eagles to the Super Bowl last year doing Jalen Hurts on a rookie contract.
Stroud's got H-Town rocking, baby. I'm here for it.
Still don't think the contracts are going anywhere. Again, quarterback's the number one position. It's got to be the guy to sign him to a long-term contract. I think that's, I don't think anybody's arguing with that. But when you look at the guys like Jared Goff, who got a big contract, he's doing really well in that system. And then also Lamar Jackson, he got one of the highest contracts. He's playing out of his mind right now. They're rolling in Baltimore. And obviously, Patrick Mahomes, I think still Burrows, he was injured. He had some injury concerns. So I think that was the reason for his poor performance early on in the season. I think he'll be just fine. He hasn't really shown me that he's washed or, not playing well. Obviously, Danny Dimes is a bit, out there. The contract was questionable when they got it, when they gave it to him in the first place. But then with the struggles of drafting the rookie quarterbacks, Bryce Young has really not done much. Kenny Pickett has really not been that impressive. Mac Jones has really, been subpar. And then, maybe a little bit, hot, but Brock Purdy, I know he was just a last draft pick, but he's kind of struggled the past couple of weeks. I don't know if they've, figured him out or whatnot, but I don't see the quarterbacks going anywhere. I think you got to build a team around it, and then you got to expect that contract. But if you have the right guy, I think you have to pay him. It's just too much of a risk to try and get a rookie, and then you don't know what he's going to do.
So I kind of go back and forth. I think that, Paul, you're right. I think if you have a guy that's, proven to be successful with the team that you built around him, I think that teams are going to end up paying him. I do think that we're going to see a little bit of an end to these mid-tier guys that are going to continuously get these, or that were continuously getting these deals, such as like Ryan Tannehill, Jimmy Garoppolo, Matt Ryan last year. I hate to say it, but Derek Carr. I mean, dude, some of these guys that are getting these pretty large deals, rather some compared to, a rookie quarterback contract. I think that some of these teams have been trying to put off these rebuilds, and I think that that's going to come to an end pretty soon. I think that some teams are going to come to the realization that, hey, maybe we can get this guy in the third or fourth round as a quarterback, kind of like what the Falcons are trying to do with Desmond Ridder, or what the Commanders are trying to do with Sam Howell. But I don't see that, these mid-tier guys continuously, asking for that much of a contract. I don't see teams paying that anymore. For example, I think that, there's some quarterbacks that have been, borderline in that top 10, top 15 range that are going to try to ask for, the top dollar, similar to Daniel Jones and Russell Wilson, for example, and Deshaun Watson. I mean, dude, these are all terrible contracts that at the moment just don't look like they made any sense. And I hate to say it, I think that the teams are going to probably end up losing someone's going to lose their job, whether that's a GM or coach or both. It does not look well for that. So, like you said, I think that there are some quarterbacks definitely worth the money, and I think they'll definitely get their bag if they're, if they're proven to be that guy. But I think that there's just a lot of these mid-tier guys that are continuously getting overpaid, and I think that's going to come to an end pretty soon. Up next, the Buffalo Bills, coming off of a tough loss. Are they going to make the playoffs? Brandon, what do you think?
I'm real iffy on them. They've got, who do they have up? They have Chiefs, Eagles, Dolphins, and Cowboys left on their schedules, which mix of home and away games, but it's going to be a rough stretch for the playoffs. Definitely. You're going to find out if, once again, Josh Allen is worth the money. I mean, speaking on quarterback contracts, you're going to find out if he's the guy or not. So I'm going to say, yeah, I think it's accurate.
Yeah, I definitely think just given the way this year's been so far, there's definitely a chance that they don't. If they don't get their crap together, like I feel like it's been a real roller coaster for them. It was bottom, and then they had nice, little peak right there, and then they're back down again. It's like, well, I mean, just like with any other team, you got to be consistent in order to do it. And with a stretch like Brandon just mentioned, that might be pretty hard, especially in a strong AFC. So
I easily could see them missing the playoffs. Their defense has just been absolutely obliterated with injuries. They're kind of only solely relying on Josh Allen, which we've seen in the past that he can win you games, but he can also lose you games with him just trying purely too much. Looking at their schedule, they have the Bucks on a Thursday night game that could be tough. Then they got the Bengals. They could get a win over the Broncos. They should get a win against the Broncos. Jets, Eagles, they could take a loss. Chiefs could take a loss. Cowboys could take a loss. Chargers, you just never know, especially if their defense is not playing well. and they got the Patriots and the Dolphins to finish it out. So they very well could only have 2 more wins the rest of the season. It really just depends on, if their defense, if they can figure something out, and if he needs to play flawless football for the rest of the season.
Yeah, no, he's
absolutely.
definitely, yeah, it looks like he's definitely been a little reckless this year. He kind of had a little bit of that last year going into the season. And I think that was a question mark a little bit over the offseason, and it's just kind of grown. So I agree with you there. I think that Josh Allen's got to protect the football more, and he's got to be a little more consistent. Next up, we don't have much time left, but I want to cover the Deshaun Watson trade versus the Russell Wilson trade. Right now, and at this point last year, everyone was saying that Russell Wilson was arguably the worst trade in the NFL history. Deshaun Watson is looking a lot worse right now. What do y'all think? Is that an overreaction?
Well, how I'm looking at it is 3 firsts versus 2 firsts for the production you got, right? I mean, Watson costed the Browns 3 firsts, and I mean, frankly, it built the Texans that we're seeing kind of blossom a little bit now and find success. And he's thrown 59% completion, 11 touchdowns and 8 interceptions over those past 2 years. And to give you perspective, Russell Wilson has done 62.3% and 29 and 15. So I don't know if it's a fair comparison anymore to say the Wilson trade was the worst, because Watson has not been playing to start with either, and he's just not been performing. 10 versus 22 games too, 22 for Russell Wilson. So I think it's completely accurate. It was a bad trade.
Yeah, I completely agree. I don't think I really need to add anything to it. I think Wilson's having a much better year this year so far. Last year was awful, but I mean, I didn't think there would be worse, but Watson is proving to potentially be worse. So he is so far through the same amount of stretch games. So we'll see.
And Wilson is just outplaying Watson at this point. Obviously, availability is the best ability. So if Deshaun can't even be on the field and they're stuck with PJ Walker or DTR, whoever else is playing quarterback, they have really no excuses to lose games. I know they're banged up at the running back position, but they have one of the best defenses in football, and they just need, if they have a subpar quarterback, that's all they really need. They something a little more than PJ Walker. He can't carry everybody to the promised land, but I think it's, especially a fully guaranteed contract. I don't know what Cleveland was doing, but
yeah, you'll never see that.
If Amari Cooper wants to come back to Dallas, I will gladly take him.
Speaking of bad quarterback contracts, once again.
Hey, you're right.
All right, guys. Well, that wraps up our show. If you guys liked what y'all heard, please give us a like, subscribe, give us a comment. Yeah, let us know if y'all want to see anything next. And until then, we'll catch y'all then. Y'all take care.
Let's go ahead and take a look at the Prize Picks board, and we'll get our Week 8 bet of the weekend. Before we go ahead and start that, I want to recap last week's bet. Hopefully you guys did trail that. We did end up cashing. On screen, I'll go ahead and pop it up right here. We took George Kittle and Alexander Madison to not score a touchdown. Thankfully they did not, as well as Jerry Jeudy and A.J. Dillon to not score a touchdown as well. So love that. We're 1 for 2 now as we started this, so I'm going to try to keep it running here. If we go back to the boards for Week 8 here, there's a couple that I really like here. First one starting up, I'm going to go with Tyreek Hill. Going against the New England Patriots, who they've played already this season. They did struggle, but Tyreek did score that lone touchdown, or the lone passing touchdown against them, as well as the New England Patriots do give up at least one passing or receiving touchdown per game this season, except for the one against the Jets. But I'm going to go ahead and feel pretty confident. I think their offense is going to be trying to revenge their kind of lackluster performance from last week. So I'm going to feel pretty confident with Tyreek, and he's always a weapon, so you can't really go wrong with him. And another guy I like a lot, I'm going to go with Travis Etienne. He's been on an absolute tear lately, scoring just, as you can see right here, 2 touchdowns in the past 3 games. He's going up against the Steelers, who have given up a rushing touchdown 4 out of the 6 games and are averaging about 4 yards to 4 to 5 yards a carry, given up. So their defense isn't doing the best, and it's also they have a very weak passing defense. So ETN can also score in the at a reception touchdown. So this kind of is a catch-all for everything. So for week 8, we're going to go ahead and do the Tyreek Hill over touchdown, anytime touchdown, and then as well as anytime touchdown on Travis Etienne Jr. So